Hello and welcome to round 12 of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. I'm Tim Willoughby, joined here by Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, and we're back to standard. We get to see 60-card decks again. There are a lot of exciting decks to show you right now. We're going to head all the way down to the feature match area, so we have a pretty nice control matchup for you. Let's see some more magic. Hello and welcome to round 12 of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. I'm Tim Willoughby, joined by Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, and we have some great players for you here in our first video feature match. Two players who are real masters of the decks that they're playing. We can see there Shaun McLaren. He's had so much success with Jeskai. He's won a Pro Tour with Jeskai. He's made the finals of a Pro Tour with Jeskai. He's now running Dark Jeskai. Turning to the dark side, we'll get a chance to see exactly what his take on that is soon enough. His opponent, the innovator, there we see him, Patrick Chapin. He is on Esper Control, and we know that Chapin loves a control deck. We know that he loves Constructed. We know this will be a great list.
Yeah, this should be fun. McLaren's Jeskai has the normal Crackling Doom splash. He's also got, a Tassiger, but then the coolest card he's splashing for is 2 copies of Butcher of the Horde.
We can see Chapin's hand there. Not necessarily looking to get too much going on early. He's got a Shambling Vent that potentially can start attacking, but I think likely to take it fairly slowly here. He knows that Shaun McLaren is on a mulligan here. He had to go down to 6 cards, kept a card on top, which means that his draws shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, Shaun McLaren fighting back from a slightly smaller hand size than he might ideally have wanted, especially on the play.
Fair. Yeah, Chapin's Esper Control deck, I mean, a number of the guys on Team Ultra Pro are running this very similar list to this Esper Control. It's got a fair number of Planeswalkers. It's got fully 8 Planeswalkers if you count the Jaces. 2 Gideons, 2 Obnixilas reignited.
Ooh, interesting. So plenty of the new Planeswalkers going on, but get used to Jace Friend's Prodigy. We're going to be seeing a lot of it in this matchup.
Yeah, he's in both
a full
of these
4
decks.
in both decks. Shaun McLaren getting things started there, and of course, Jace working very well with the Polluted Delta already in the graveyard, meaning that getting to 5 cards in graveyard, getting that flip, not overly difficult for either of these decks.
Yeah, Patrick's got multiple Silk Wraps in his hands, though. I presume he's going to use Silk Wrap to get this Jace off the board before Shaun can get any value out of it.
Yeah, Silk Wrap, obviously powerful against Jace, also powerful against the Hangerback Walkers that are being run in the Dark Jeskai deck.
Yeah, and it's the rise of this Dark Jeskai deck is I think a lot of the reason you see so many Silk Wraps in all these decks. It's in the Jeskai as well, but you can remove a Hangerback Walker, and then it doesn't even matter if they blow up your enchantment, because their Hangerback Walker would come back as a 0/0 and just die. So that's where it's at its best. But it's also, as you see here, it's a way to kill a turn 2 Jace, just straight up. 2 mana for 2 mana trade.
Now, of course, Shaun McLaren here does have the Hangerback Walker, so he is able to get the 1/1 in play. He's not going to be too happy when he sees that, as it happens, Patrick Chapin, not out of gas, or in this case, out of silk, with which to deal with the early plays that he's got going on. Now, of course, both of these decks, with as many colors as they've got going on, they do have a little bit of a puzzle to work with, I suppose, in terms of getting the right mana. The fact that Shaun was able to start off with 2 basics means that from now on, any of his Battle for Zendikar lands going to be coming into play untapped. Meanwhile, Patrick having to work out what to fetch and when to get everything going. In the meantime, though, he has bought plenty of time with those Silk Wraps.
Yeah, every opening hand can be a little bit of a puzzle.
Now, both of these players, they're well used to the control role. They know that they don't necessarily need to be going aggressive all the time, getting too much going early, because this is likely to be a game that goes long. And as games go long, one of the things that's going to be very important is hitting those land drops. Shaun McLaren hasn't missed a land drop yet. It looks likely that Patrick is going to be getting enough lands on board that we're going to see a real game of Magic going on here. Neither of these players too stuck on mana.
I mean, I don't think of McLaren's deck as a true control deck. If he does have 4 dig through time, he can certainly win a late game with the card advantage from dig through time. I mean, that's one of the powers of the Jeskai deck. But he's the beatdown here. You want to talk about roles? He's the one who's supposed to come out and defeat Patrick before Patrick can really set up his own late game, which is not only 4 dig through time, but also those Planeswalkers.
Jace count 2, we're seeing potentially a Planeswalker here, but Shaun McLaren willing and ready to crack off a Fiery Impulse there. 2 damage straight at Jace. Does not need Spell Mastery to deal with that creature. And Patrick is willing to fight, but he's not going to be too happy to see that there's a second copy of Fiery Impulse here available to Shaun McLaren. And an apt time to use it now, as Patrick Chapin is currently tapped out, having cast the negate on that first Fiery Impulse.
Yeah, Shaun's other card is a Clash of Wills. So his real question is, which answer does he want? Which one does he could counter the negate with the Clash of Wills, or he could throw the second Fiery Impulse at Jace? That's what he's debating here.
Well, using 2 fetch lands suggests that he might be looking to employ more than just the 1 mana here.
Well, I mean, they both... Yeah. He either needed the red for the Impulse, or he needed an anything for the Clash.
Caught a little glimpse there of that Butcher of the Horde. That one's certainly not an inclusion that you see in every Dark Jeskai list. Obviously plays very nicely with Hangerback Walker. Sometimes you just want to be able to sacrifice those creatures on your own terms rather than wait for your Hangerback Walker to get hit by a Silk Trap or similar.
Indeed. I mean, it's interesting how neither player has really got any card advantage this game. I mean, they've just traded 1 for 1. They've traded 1 for 1. Nobody's gotten a Jace to stick. I feel like it's going to come down to who top decks the first dig through time. Or maybe a threat. I mean, Patrick still has a Languish, still has a Ruinous Path, so it's not like a Butcher of the Horde off the top would quite win it for Shaun. But, I mean, at this point, they've traded a bunch of cards. Now, Shaun drew Crackling Doom, didn't he?
He did, yes.
Yeah, it's one of the advantages Patrick has in this matchup is that he doesn't really play creatures, per se.
Yeah, Gideon, who we see coming into play here, yes, sometimes he attacks kind of like a creature, but in the meantime, he's more of an engine for this deck. If, of course, he resolves, which we know Clash of Wills is going to say no to, that's certainly a fine target for the counterspell, and Shaun may even be able to leave a little bit of mana up there.
So now both players have 2 cards in their hand, and both players have removal spells with no targets.
2? Yep.
2 Crackling Dooms plays against a Ruinous Path and a Languish. Who can draw the dig through time?
Power Shambling Vent.
Oh, that's true.
Attack.
Patrick is actually ahead by this Shambling Vent, isn't he?
But it looks like he might be losing that that land to a Crackling Doom here. So 2 points of damage to Patrick Chapin's head, plus getting rid of that creature. And I guess that's one of the cool things that the control decks have picked up in this format now with the addition of Battle for Zendikar. In addition to Gideon, who you can see there is Shambling Vent, which it fixes your mana early. It means that you're just a little bit cleaner on getting the colors that you need. And at some point in the game, it might just be able to race a little bit.
That's a good point.
Fetching lands that tap for 2 colors of mana and come into play untapped. It's a happy place that we're living in Standard right now. Patrick Chapin not necessarily going to be using all of that mana this turn, but just knowing that from now on he's got those basics, he's going to be able to do pretty much what he wants with his mana is a great place to be.
It is not an accident that both players have exactly 2 basics in play.
Yeah, once you have 2, really no pressure to fetch the third whatsoever.
Good.
Now with 7 mana, that means that Ruinous Path potentially can be used to awaken if we find that there's ever any creatures in play for Shaun McLaren for any length of time.
Yep.
Shambling Vent number 2 runs into Crackling Doom number 2. Now Shaun is actually out of cards. I mean, Patrick effectively turned 2 lands, traded 2 lands for 2 spells.
Sure.
And now he's got a duress to clear a path for whatever he's going to do next.
Now, both these players are very patient. I don't think that you should necessarily... You're going to see too much worry on either of these players' faces if this game does go long. Mantis Rider able to get a hit in with haste here because all of the answers in Chapin's hand are sorcery speed.
Indeed.
Another Silk Wrap there, the draw.
Now, Patrick knows that Shaun's been in top deck mode. So, I mean, Ruinous Path starts to look kind of exciting here, right?
Languish.
All right, not quite yet.
6 is not the magic number, so he says...
Yeah, I feel like if he'd had a 7th man and he could duress first, that might have been the way he went.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that he has lost 2 lands already to removal spells, so he made the choice to attack in. and ultimately that meant that he's going to have to sit on this Ruinous Path. But given that he's had a 1-for-1 removal spell for everything so far, he can wait on his 2-for-1s.
Yeah, and the other, obviously, he wants to languish before he turns one of his lands into a creature that would die to languish. So his sequencing makes
quick
a ton of
update
sense.
from one of the back tables. Martin Mueller has taken the first game against Brandon Burton. So Burton on Ataka Red we saw yesterday briefly on the King of the Hill table, but facing down the Danish Wunderkind, currently a game down. Chapin with Utter End. Another way of exiling things, of course, relevant in the face of this Hangerback Walker-esque world, but also actually with Ojutai's command getting back Jace's left, right, and center we saw yesterday, just being able to exile creatures is a little bit safer than letting them go to the graveyard these days.
Yeah, the way this game has played out seems great for Patrick's side. Like, Shaun is, in fact, the aggressor. He's the one who keeps offering up these creatures. Please, sir, can I have a Mantis Rider? How about a Butcher the Horde? Patrick's just got all the answers. I mean, Ruinous Path does actually cost 7 to awaken, so it is not an option yet. But will be soon.
Just a quick update from one of our back tables. Paulo Vitor, Dama de Rosa. If this is a control matchup, then Paulo Vitor is doing some combination of either straightforward beatdown or actual combo. He was able to win that last game with Teemo Battle Rage and Become Immense. So kind of a red combo deck that particular game. He's one game up against Yoshihiko Ikawa. We can see Ruinous Path chilling out there. Only a Crackling Doom and a Flooded Strand from McLaren. So, in principle, he has an answer for a creature, but we know that Patrick Chapin's deck has plenty of threats that are not creatures. And
yeah, and he's had it duress in his hand for a while now. He's just been waiting for something to clear a path for.
And he's found that because he did draw a Dig Through Time this turn.
I got a 7.
Yeah, McLaren's just going to fire off the only spell he's got, deal the 2 damage.
So Patrick Chapin is on 7, but I don't think he's likely to be too worried just yet. Able to cast Dig Through Time here for just 2 mana, plenty of cards to exile from the graveyard that are not likely to be ones he wants to get back anytime soon. Such a satisfying feeling. Dealing out 7 cards, it's as if you're drawing an opening hand, it's just you only get to keep 2, and you probably already have a whole bunch of lands in play to cast them.
Yeah, I suspect that this matchup is part of the reason we're seeing Esper really come out at this Pro Tour. We haven't seen a ton of it at the open events in the weeks leading up to this. We had a little bit here and there. But I mean, a lot of teams are on similar Esper decks. I mean, there's the details vary a lot. How many Planeswalkers? Maybe it's a Dragons deck. Maybe it's just a pure control, old school style control deck. But this matchup looks slanted toward Esper. And if Jeskai's the most played deck, then you want to be on the thing that beats the most played deck.
Absolutely, you do. And I think that this is something that we see time and again when it comes to the evolution of Standard when a new set comes out. The first couple of weeks, people are on slightly more aggressive plans. They're just trying to get out there and get the wins however they want to sort of find them. Once the control players get a feel for what the format looks like, they say, right, these are the spells that I need to play so that I can deal with this. And Patrick Chapin, resolving 2 Dig Through Times in a single turn, and Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, we all of a sudden have a game of our hands. Nothing that Shaun McLaren can do there. Draws a blank, and at this point, yes, it's going to take a little bit of time for Jace to flip after all of those dig-through times, but now we have Patrick Chapin able to get card advantage. He's found another Gideon. Absolutely what he was looking to do, and now he's going to start making tokens.
Yeah, Shaun didn't draw a complete blank. He drew Clash of Wills. Doesn't deal with Jace, so it's pretty close to a blank. But he'll stop Gideon from joining the team, or he'll try to, but he'll run into negate.
Creatures on deck, will they stay in play for more than a single solitary turn? Thus far, the answer is no.
I like the allied tokens odds, not going to lie. I guess Jace technically a creature still.
That is true, yes. For now.
Did a pretty interesting lesson on how this matchup works. Now, Shaun did mulligan, and and Patrick was the first guy to draw a dig through time. But that said, Patrick just felt like he, survived the early turns at even, and then just kept steadily pulling farther and farther ahead as the game progressed. Shaun went draw card and I guess gain life. Doesn't have any creatures to get back.
Gone to 20, found a removal spell for Jace.
Okay. Still a Gideon over there.
This is true.
And a grip of 4.
Patrick Chapin no longer able to use Elspeth's Son's Champion as his white planeswalker of choice for making lots of creatures in the feature match area, but has found a replacement that is serving, at least for now, literally serving in the red zone, turning into a creature, getting stuck in there, and counteracting that life gain from Ojutai's command with a little bit of a bonus thanks to the token. Empty-handed magic from Shaun McLaren here.
I'll get back Jason, gain 4. Sure.
And that one of the reasons that Ojutai's command has really come to the forefront. Being able to get back a Jace, put it straight into play at instant speed, while potentially counting a creature, drawing a card, doing all sorts of things. That's enough to get Patrick Chapin the win in Game 1. We'll be back with some more Magic very, very shortly. But first, these messages.
Standard is the name of the game at Battle for Zendikar Game Day. Put what you've learned from watching the Pro Tour into action on October 24th and 25th at your local game store. Visit magic.wizards.com/gameday for more information. Qualify for the next Pro Tour on Magic Online. Go 5-0 or 4-1 in one of 10 preliminaries to advance to the finals. You can see the full schedule at mtgo.com.
Hello and welcome back to round 12 of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. In our main match between Shaun McLaren and Patrick Chapin, it is currently sideboarding time after Chapin won Game 1. But we've got plenty more control to look at. I know that you're a big fan of the control matchups, Randy. We have Paul Reitzel against Martin Yuzer on the back table. They're still in Game 1 and they're both on Esper. We've seen that Esper has been very strong thus far, but a few different threats in play here. Martin Yuzer with Dragonlord Ojutai.
Yeah, he's Esper Dragons. He's Esper Dragons, whereas Paul is, whether we want to call it Esper Control or Esper Planeswalkers, it's the same list as Chapin. They're both teammates on Team Ultra Pro.
Yeah, some Planeswalker lists have been referred to as super friends. I'm not sure when you got Obnixilis in the mix he's ever particularly friendly, but when he's on the board, he's certainly very powerful and does so many different things that any control deck could be looking to do. Drawing cards, killing creatures, just getting it done.
I mean, there's more Planeswalkers in the Reitzel deck than there are Dragons in the Yuzer deck, so... Or any of the Esper Dragons decks, for that matter. I think Esper Planeswalkers, maybe.
And a Blighted Fen in play, potentially going to be a good option to deal with dragons at some point. But given that Dragonlord Ojutai is tapped, Ruinous Path also doing the trick there.
Paul declines to pay the Awaken cost. He'd rather have his mana available to fight a fight over that Ruinous Path or deal with whatever Martin's follow-up's going to be. There's also a Shambling Vent in play on Martin's side.
Yeah, making it a creature at instant speed, of course, a way of having an option of not having to sacrifice the most painful creature.
I gotta think Paul's happy to just trade cards, and sit with Obnixilis in play.
Yeah, that kind of the way of things when it comes to Planeswalkers. If all other things are equal and you have a Planeswalker, chances are you're winning the game. Paul Reitzel, you see the 2 there by his name. That indicates that right now in terms of the top players in the world, he's ranked 2nd. He's had a great run this year, even though, or this season, should I say, even though this is the first Pro Tour of the season.
Just 3 Grand Prix top 8s and a top 4 at Worlds. Is that a good run before the first Pro Tour of the season?
I'd take it. Dig through time there coming for him.
Everybody would take it.
Seven cards seen off Dig Through Time. He's going to get to keep 2 of them.
It is kind of interesting to see Paul playing a control deck. I mean, historically, much more affiliated with beatdown decks and, Boros decks in particular.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the players who, to me, is most fearsome when they have some 2-drops that they can get into the red zone with. The fact that he's choosing to play this deck here, a fairly strong statement on how he sees the format.
Precisely. And look, I don't think Paul, has to play with beatdown creatures. I think he's just fearsome full stop. He's fearsome when he's got magic cards in his hand, in my mind. But yeah, he's the kind of guy that, whereas a lot of pros will err on the side of playing control because they like to have, more options, they want to have more turns, they want to have more interaction and more decisions. Paul doesn't want to play control unless he believes it's legitimately the best deck,
14.
He's, I don't know, a little more disciplined somehow.
Obnixilis there, meaning that Paul Reitzel's hand full to bursting, and it looks like there's a Planeswalker in there if he wishes to assemble a bigger team here. I mean, the other way, of course, that Paul Reitzel can get plenty of creatures on the board if he so wishes, is he does have a couple of copies of Secure the Wastes. Now, that's one that can very quickly turn a game from being sort of a drawn-out affair without too much on the board to a board full of creatures and then a little bit of sideboarding.
Go.
Silumgar the Drifting Death there, the only creature currently in play, but protected from the Blighted Fen by Shambling Vent. Goes for Obnixilis, successfully takes out the Planeswalker. Reignited. Most beings in the multiverse don't get to be a Planeswalker once. Obnixilis somehow managed to get there twice, but could not beat Silumgar. Quick update from one of our back tables. Martin Mueller has defeated Brandon Burton. He advances to 10-2. He was my pick before this Pro Tour as my potential winner, and so far my horse is still in the race, so fairly happy about that one. Congratulations to Martin.
It's nice to see Brandon Burton make it back to the feature match area. He had a little run as King of the Hill yesterday. I know a lot of people have been, sending the story Corbin Hostler wrote.
It's beautifully written.
He and his mother.
I strongly recommend that everyone read it. In the meantime, though, we see Secure the Wastes making 6 tokens for Paul Reitzel. He's decided, I'm not afraid of Silumgar. But it looks like the McLaren Chapen match is just starting. I think that realistically, the first couple of turns we can afford to at least stay with this Paul Reitzel match. Gideon joining the team too.
Like, what's his plan for all these Secure the Waste tokens versus Silumgar? Gideon. That's the plan.
Yeah, so I'm guessing Gideon, assuming it resolves here,
getting an emblem, right?
Cashed in for an emblem, because then all of those soldier tokens, or warrior tokens, should I say, just big enough that Silumgar no longer so much a concern.
Hit for 12, and don't have to worry about Silumgar.
Martin Yuzer left to think about what he's done here.
Yeah, I feel like Paul should have this from here. Martin's got one card in his hand. Paul's got a full grip. I mean, there's a man land or creature land that he can activate. Take a couple turns, but
and we have Carnage in the feature match area. Palavitor Damaderosa says, I've got the throne on the King of the Hill table. I'm not going to give it up anytime soon. I know what Pro Tour top 8s are like. I want to have another one. He wins 2-0, and all of a sudden, Martin Yuzer dropping down to 8 on that attack. Paul Reitzel in a commanding position. He's turned a corner. He just needs to get the final points through.
Oh, nice. Got you to activate your land on my turn. Silk Rapid.
That will do it.
Which sets the Blighted Fen up to kill Silumgar.
It's on the stack or it resolves? That resolves. Okay.
Good times here for Paul Reitzel.
Wow. I mean, Paul was a little bit ahead when we tuned in. Basically, they were even, except Paul had the Obnixilis.
Okay. I mean, the devil's in the details for a lot of control decks, and I feel like the one-off choices in here, the Blighted Fen suddenly really coming into its own. Having lands that can also function as spells, having been great for both players, it may well be here that Paul Reitzel's the one that's finally able to convert his lands into a winning situation.
I don't know. I'm impressed by the patience Paul's shown with that around that Silumgar. He's just like, yeah, I'm not sure I actually care about Silumgar. Negate the Languish. Martin got Ojutai's Command and an island in his hand, I believe. It's not going to get it done.
No, it's Ojutai.
Oh, it's Ojutai. It was not Ojutai's Command. I got the blue-white part right.
I mean, the good news for Martin is if he can survive this turn, he can attack with 2 dragons, get 2
yeah, but now it's Blighted
Fen
time. This is how Paul set it up. Yeah,
and that's the game, and we get a chance to go back to our main match. Patrick Chapin, a game up here against Shaun McLaren, and we've just missed the first few turns. The most important thing that's happened in those turns, a Jace is in play. It is being activated, and it's being activated by the player that currently really needs to get back in this match, that being Shaun McLaren. Plenty of options in a whole variety of colours, and every colour available to Shaun McLaren here on his turn 4. He successfully navigated the puzzle, as we call it. But happy to sit back with those answers in hand rather than throwing a Butcher of the Horde out there prematurely. Patrick Chapin just thinking about his options.
One more note about Brandon Burton, by the way. He did lose his feature match this round, but he's one of the 4 6-0 drafters this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be something that I'm really looking forward to looking out for across the entire season. We've got 4 players that we know going in for next round, for the next Pro Tour.
They're tied for first.
Ahead.
It's Draft Master, right?
I mean, an invitation to Worlds is huge.
Huge. Brandon Burton, Paulo Vitor, Will Urker, and Don van Rijwenswijk.
All great players, and certainly I'm sure that they now will feel a little bit of extra pressure, I guess, going into subsequent Pro Tours, just to make sure that their drafting gets them there. Of course, Paul Reitzel that we just saw, currently leading for the Hall of Famer that's most successful for the year invite.
Sure.
Plenty of new ways of getting
He's
to
also
Worlds.
leading for Player of the Year, but that's fine.
Shaun McLaren there with a 13 by his name. That means he's currently 13th in the world, but Chapin with 3 dig-through times in his hand. So for him, it's just a matter of let's get lands, let's not get in too much trouble in the early game, because when things get to the mid and late game, if I can resolve these dig-through times, I will be in fantastic shape.
Yeah, this matchup seems like it's usually going to be won by whoever resolves the most copies of Dig Through Time.
Of course, the other big source of card advantage is a Jace. And
Indeed.
once Jace gets to flip, which I think we're about to see, it does become a little bit of a problem, because being able to flashback cards from your graveyard, a very powerful ability. Being able to lock down creatures, potentially also useful, though at this point, Patrick not really troubling things too much there. You can't target the Shambling Vent, as it's not a creature, on your turn. It's up to 1 target, though, so if you do want to get your loyalty up on Jace, you always can, and it looks like, in this case, without a good card to flash back, that's what Shaun McLaren has done.
Is it 1920? No.
Yep.
Yeah, wow.
Now you see how good those Silk Wraps are. Last game, Patrick had 2 copies of Silk Wrap. He got the Jace and the Hangerback Walker, and now they were into the mid-game, right? And this game, that turn 2 Jace stuck. And, I mean, I think Shaun's going to send it to game 3 on the back of it. A little early to conclude that, but he's definitely ahead and pulling away.
Yeah, Jace, an interesting card, one that when it very first came out with Magic Origins, there were a few people that were a little bit down on, couldn't quite see where it fit in Standard, but an absolute powerhouse. And given the nature of the format where you don't necessarily need to run too many basics, it's got to be pushing for one of the cards that's being most played full stop at this Pro Tour. Polluted Delta there being sacrificed by Shaun McLaren. Able to fetch a land that taps for a couple of colors of mana, and he has a few options even in that regard.
I mean, the fact that it's 2 mana is where a lot of that power comes from.
Yeah,
You do sometimes get boards like this one where there's nothing super exciting to flash back right here. But, okay, we just start ticking it up. I mean, eventually the ultimate becomes interesting, right?
I mean, in this sort of a matchup, the ultimate's certainly interesting. Getting an emblem that says whenever you cast a spell, target opponent puts the top 5 cards of his or her library into her graveyard is, it's really strong. You will ultimately be able to win with it. It's not the kind of ultimate that simply ends the game, but realistically, that's not something we see quite so much from all of the Planeswalkers now. McLaren there, satisfied to sit back with plenty of cards in hand.
Dig through time.
Chapen puts it straight in the graveyard. He has no illusions that this is going to resolve.
Clutch. Untap.
But now he can run it back again. And McLaren can't play that much permission, right? I mean, these guys don't know deck lists. But, I mean, McLaren's pretty clearly on Dark Jeskai.
Yeah, and that one of the interesting things in terms of positioning and preparation for these matches. If you're playing a deck that has had some success in the weeks prior to the Pro Tour, there's the potential that people might have a better idea of your list. If you bring your own
Definitely.
something special, the value of bringing something new at a Pro Tour, potentially colossal. And I think that's potentially what we might see from Christian Calcano this weekend.
Butcher? Yeah.
Butcher of the Horde resolving.
Chapen going to go through another dig through time.
Sure.
A quick shore from Shaun, like it doesn't matter. In fact, he's got Ojutai's command, but that only counters creatures. Or brings creatures back.
It fairly regularly brings creatures back. I think the sign to me of a great command as opposed to just a good one is one where all 4 modes are something that you might reasonably use across a variety of matches. And Ojutai's command now with good creatures to bring back in Jace, it does what you need when you need it to.
Unfortunately, it couldn't bring Shaun's Jace back last game because it was under his Silk Wrap. It's like he cast it late in the game. I'm like, there's usually a creature to bring back, but it's another advantage of Silk Wrap.
Utter end Jace.
Wow. Yeah, Chapen resolves a dig through time. All of a sudden, the tables have turned, right? Jace just vanishes to an utter end. And there's a Butcher of the Horde in play for, we'll see how long that lasts. Shaun does not have the Dragon Master Outcast technology that a lot of these Dark Jeskai lists will have a couple of.
Surge of Righteousness.
Super good in a late game and can be brought back with an Ojutai's command.
If you're looking for a nice sideboard card in this matchup, Surge of Righteousness qualifies.
20.
Indeed.
Being able to destroy black or red creatures that are attacking or blocking actually gives you a huge amount of options. I mean, it kills Siege Rhinos, it kills Butcher of the Hordes.
Kills Mantis Rider.
It gains you a bit of life along the
Kills
way.
You, this is the 6th card.
Was this discarded?
The Butcher, no, this was activated, but the Butcher had to have been the 5th card because you looted that away, and by then Jace would flip. So yeah, you had to have, yeah. So you're at 20 to 18.
Just making sure that everything's all in order there in terms of graveyard.
I think it was the life total was the question. Did he take the life from a fetch land? Or had he discarded a fetch land to Jace? Because, of course, the important part of Surge of Righteousness is the life gain part, right?
Sure.
And there's Gideon. Immediately bringing an ally. Gideon's someone who brings a lot of friends with him. In this case, he's going to be utterly ended relatively quickly, assuming that Chapin hasn't got an answer here.
Oh, Chapin got off a duress early in this game, so he still knows about that Ojutai's command. It's like, I don't care about the Ojutai's command. Let's negate.
I'm at 22.
And because it was Utter End that killed the Jace, Shaun once again finds himself without a creature to bring back. Just draw a card, gain 4.
Yeah, gaining 4, there are definitely matchups where it feels like the most important ability.
And this is definitely not one of them. All right, Jeskai Charm does the 4 damage to Patrick, can be redirected to Gideon, so Shaun is sort of desperately struggling to stay in this. But he's out of gas, and Patrick's still got 4 spells in his hand?
And 1 creature
5
in play.
spells in his hand.
He can win by inches with the creature in play. He can also
Not
win
gonna
by
win with that
miles with the
ally.
cards in his hand.
Yeah.
Dragon Lord's Prerogative, that's a lot of extra cards too.
What? Is that a bad sideboard card?
Dragon Lord's Prerogative.
Shaun looks at his smoldering marsh. Do you stop this?
It should come as no surprise that our control matches are the ones we're going to see the most of. The only other match going on in this feature match area in the background you can just see is Paul Reitzel versus Martin Yuzer. They're still in their game too.
I'm at 17 to your 22.
Now, look, I don't want to count out Shaun McLaren with a Jeskai deck in his hands, but if there's a lot of this Esper Control up at the top of the Swiss,
Oh, yeah, 2 from this. Yeah.
I don't know how much Jeskai we're going to see on Sunday.
17 to 20.
Each of these players already with 1 draw on their record.
That said, they have a loss to give. I think that at the end of the day, what is it, 13-3-1? Or 14-3-1? That's going to be good enough. Oh, it's 16 rounds. 12-3-1. Math.
Nicholas.
12-3-1 is going to be good enough. I think somebody may sneak in at 12-4. So not an elimination match. It's a push your back against the wall match. McLaren will have to rattle off 4 wins from here.
And Obnixilis now in play. We see it's already used a -3 to get rid of Mantis Rider, meaning that the second Mantis Rider is able to take it down. However, we know that Patrick Chapin, with so many cards in his grip and 1 creature in play to keep attacking with, certainly not in anything resembling terrible shape, and his hand only getting better as he resolves yet another dig through time. Dig through time, ultimately what this match has all been about.
Yeah. Yeah, Patrick's just so far ahead. And, I mean, thoroughly confident with these cards in his hand. We've seen him play a lot of Abzan the last couple of years, but I think it's just that was the best deck, so that's where he was playing. But when you go back before that, and he was one of those pros that people would accuse of playing control even when it wasn't good.
Yeah, and I think that the moment that he said, I'm going to be playing what I believe to be the best deck and broadened things out a little bit and started playing more of the Abzan-style decks, was the moment where he elevated himself again to one of the top echelons of the game. That's when he started. That's when he had
won Pro Tour
really deep
Atlanta,
runs. He won a Pro Tour.
Got to the finals of Worlds. That was by turning his back on the blue cards.
Turns out, though, they were still close by.
Like riding a bicycle. All comes right back.
Nicholas.
And it's second verse, same as the first here. Obnixilis, number 2, dealing with Mantis Rider, number 2. And the attacks keep on coming from Patrick Chapin here.
Look at Chapin's hand. Good. Shaun has a land.
All kinds of goodness. And at some point, Secure the Waste can speed up this clock, but I don't know if Patrick really needs to. He can just kind of sit back and enjoy his time under the lights.
Yeah, Chapin to make this top 8. He's still with a loss to give with 4 rounds. I guess he doesn't get to draw the last round, so he needs to go 3-1 in the last 4.
Which one is that?
I'm giving him credit for this win.
It just looks just like the Bloodstained
He's just playing with his food now. Dress you. Oh, he's got a Gideon now. I think this is, I mean, don't you just end step, do a big Secure the Waste, untap Gideon emblem, finish it?
I mean, I guess we know that there's a little bit of time, so it's not necessarily the clock that's forcing to end things, but, you know, time spent chilling out between rounds, getting some water, decompressing, versus time potentially having difficult things happen in the feature match area. I can see why he would want to finish things a little faster here, and lots of warriors coming in.
Maybe he just wants to be on camera longer.
I find it hard to argue with that. We see the Platinum Pro tokens being pulled out there by Patrick Chapin as his spare warriors while we hunt down a few extra tokens. Each year, the Platinum players get their own sort of signature cards. If you happen to see them at GPs, ask real nice. You might be able to get hold of one. But in the meantime,
Chapin flashes the Gideon, and McLaren knows that emblem makes it lethal.
So 2-0, Patrick Chapin taking it down in relatively perfunctory fashion. It seemed fairly straightforward for him ultimately. So we're going to have one last match to look at. We're on game 2 here between Paul Reitzel and Martin Yuzer. But this time round, Martin Yuzer seems to have the edge on board. We'll wait to see those cards in hand to be absolutely sure, because cards in hand are so important in these control matchups, of course. But Tasiger and Jace in play, doing good work here for Martin Yuzer, one must assume.
Tasiger activation.
Hold on a second on my end step.
Tasker activations, of course, meaning that even easier for Jace to flip. I mean, it feels like, much as with Tarmogoyf, getting cards in the graveyard isn't that difficult to make good things happen. With Jace, getting cards in the graveyard is just a sort of inevitable thing that happens over the course of the game.
Paul's going to take the opportunity, while Martin has 4 mana tapped from the Tasker activation, to fire off a Blighted Fen during his own end step. One of those creatures is going to die. It's up to Martin which one. Wow. Tassie goes down. Got to keep the 2 mana 1/1, not the 4/5.
2 mana O2.
2 mana O2. Sorry. Of course.
Jace, not big on the fighting, but that does not necessarily mean that he's not useful in a fight.
That's 4. Thank you. I'll start with a duress.
Starting with a duress sounds like a great plan, and look at those great cards in Paul Reitzel's hand. Plenty going on there. Not a huge amount of land, but most other things he's looking good on. Gideon, Ruinous Path there, plenty of options, Ojutai's Command, and a Dig Through Time. Based on what we saw in the last match, I would have to say that Dig Through Time looks like a pretty exciting thing to take here.
I agree. I mean, Ruinous Path can kill the Jace. It's the other option.
And part of this, of course, will be informed by what is in Martin Yuzer's hand here. If he has counter magic for the first spell that's going to come down from Reitzel, it might be more enticing to just
Take the instant. Take the jig in that case. Takes the Ruinous Path, so defending his Jace.
potentially signaling a little bit about what's going on in his hand to Paul Reitzel.
Yeah, I see an Utter End in Martin's hand. Hasn't shown up in our hand tool yet.
Duress you again.
And a flashback duress.
Of course.
Beautiful stuff here from Martin Yuzer. Looking to get revenge after game one. There goes the dig through time. So just Ojutai's Command and that Gideon left in Paul Reitzel's hand, which has been whittled down. And Haven of the Spirit Dragon there from Martin Yuzer. He is on the Esper Dragons list. That means that potentially we are going to see the game closed out by a big flyer on his side of the board. And Shambling Vent here coming in at Jace and successfully killing off the Planeswalker.
And no black mana for that Utter End.
Five mana, our first dragon of the game here in Dragonlord Ojutai for Martin Yuzer. That one, a potentially problematic one to deal with until it's at least had one chance to attack, because hexproof, as long as it's untapped, if it does get to deal combat damage though, all sorts of problems ensue for opponents, because effectively you get to cast Anticipate for free. You look at the top three cards of your library, put one in your hand, the rest on the bottom in any order.
All Paul needs is a Blighted Fen,
16,
right?
17, right?
Problem being, he only has the one.
Oh, your game delay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of all of the things, I think Blighted Fen, one of the few things that can't be dealt with or used multiple times from the graveyard and so on. Between Ojutai's Command and Jace, almost everything is fair game while it's still in the graveyard for these control decks. Speaking of Jace, there's one in play.
11.
And a big swing from Martin Yuzer here, who gets to improve his hand a little. Let's see what he's got to look at there. And Utter End seems fairly enticing.
Oh, Martin's hand's already good now that we see it. He's got a hard counter in the Silumgar Scorn because there's a dragon in play. He's got a soft counter with the Clash of Wills, and he's got to dig through time. Yeah, I was starting to think about it from Paul's perspective, like how much longer would I play this out versus, you know, active Jace, active Ojutai. He wants to make sure and preserve enough time to actually win a game 3.
I mean, Dragonlord's prerogative, the pick up there from the Anticipate, so an uncountable way of drawing 4 cards if he chooses to tap 6 mana at any given point.
I mean, you see Paul playing very quickly, and he's just, you know, he's willing to take chances. He's trying to play fast. Gamble. There's only 8 minutes left on the clock. That's the feature match area clock I'm being told about, too.
Yeah,
sure.
And this is only game 2. Reitzel does lead in this game, but one would have to say that he is behind in this game, and he's got to be worried that if it doesn't close itself out fairly fast this game one way or another, he's just going to really struggle in game 3.
Well, I mean, if there's only 8 minutes left in the round, Paul may be more likely to win 1-0 than to win 2-1.
I mean, I think that with Yuzer's hand there of so much counter magic, he's all about protect the queen, or in this case, protect Dragonlord Ojutai.
Yeah. I mean, Paul's clearly playing quickly. Paul clearly making his decisions and his plays very crisply.
And all of the counter magic being used up in that little exchange there. Ojutai will not be able to attack for quite so much next turn.
Yeah, he still gets the Anticipate off, though.
We'll fetch.
And this is one of the things that you see from some of the top players in the game. Even though they might take a bit of time on some of their turns, when they do need to crank up the tempo in order to get things done, that is absolutely something that they can do. And Martin Yuzer here, crisp in each of his plays, getting things done. And Paul Reitzel says,
yeah, he's done.
All right, I get it. I'm not winning this game. Let's shuffle up as fast as we can because it's in neither of our best interests to have a draw here.
I mean, the draw is slightly better than the loss. But both players would prefer, I mean, if you ask them right now, they'd prefer to just have one of them win rather than only pick up 2 points between them.
So the sideboarding, given that we're going from game 2 to game 3, it seems likely to me that the changes will be small spot adjustments rather than more significant movements in terms of deck design. I mean, something that's interesting to look at here, it appears that the list between Patrick Chapin and Paul Reitzel, very, very similar at very least, possibly absolutely identical.
Yeah, I haven't found a difference yet.
So these two players, each giving us a masterclass in how this deck works in a variety of different matchups. Both of them more controlling end of the spectrum matchups, it must be said. But many of the answers that are good against control, also really pretty powerful against the aggro decks. I mean, we saw Patrick Chapin using Surge of Righteousness against Jeskai. It's pretty good against the red aggro decks too, it must be said.
Yeah, I mean, the one sideboarding thing I'd be doing if I was Paul, I don't know how he had his deck configured for game 2, but he does have a couple of dragons in the sideboard. You bring him in.
Yeah.
If your goal is to win a game 3 in, what, 5 minutes? You need all the creatures you can get.
And I feel a little bit sorry for our coverage guys down on the floor trying to keep track of cards in hand here because both of these players are going to play it super fast. Both these decks can draw a lot of cards. And that opening hand there for Paul Reitzel looks to be relatively solid, but a duress there from Martin Yuzer could make life a little bit tricky, and there is counter magic available for Yuzer. Both these players have hands they can work with. We're off to the races.
Time was called on the main floor, but with 4.5 minutes left for this feature match area.
Jace Vryn's Prodigy we see there. That a card that, if it comes down in a regular control match, we know to be very powerful. If it comes down in this match, which is playing Speedy Magic, it's less clear that it's obviously going to be amazing.
Still great. You might not have time to leverage all the card advantage, but it's still great.
Duress has no targets there.
Swing and a miss.
Jason Atasiga.
And rather than have Martin spend time writing down his hand, Paul offers to just play with it face up.
Yeah, the sort of thing that you see relatively commonly in side drafts and testing, not so much in Pro Tour matches where the players are at X and 3. But it makes absolute sense in this instance.
Paul deciding what to discard to Jace. Martin takes that opportunity to crack his fetch land.
It's going to be your turn.
Yeah, that almost the commander fetch land move. I'm going to fetch now while other things are going on just to save time.
Indeed.
Go. Activate.
Draws a card, discards Jace number 2. The number of cards that Martin Yuzer are aware of dwindling quickly.
Yeah. Could tap out for Tasigur here.
Go.
No, not with that land play.
Tasker, okay. Sure. You know what Tasker. How many cards do you have?
Martin says, yes, I do know about Tasigur, but I'm going to write it down just to be sure. And this, I suppose, one reason to play the beatdown decks. Paul Reitzel, best known for playing relatively aggressive decks. Here we see him playing a control deck relatively aggressively because that's what's required. Yuzer there with 2 Silumgar's Scorn and Scatters the Winds in hand. Plenty of options in terms of countering things, though those Silumgar's Scorn right now effectively force spike.
No dragon. Scatter the Winds works.
2 minutes now the time on the clock. Once time is called, there will be 5 turns, but neither of these decks currently presenting any way of dealing any damage, at least on the board. Reitzel did bring in his dragon. He has Dragon Lord Ojutai in hand. Now who's the Esper Dragon's deck, he thinks?
Yeah, Paul with the Dispel as well. It seems like he wants to play a creature with Dispel backup is what he's hoping to do. Okay, he's going to pick a fight with Dig Through Time on Martin's end step. Martin is, of course, going to counter that, but now Paul gets to untap with the Coast Clear, and I think he can actually drop Ojutai and Tassiger. No, his Graveyard's gone. He can do either one or the other.
But he can do so with a Dispel backup.
Yep.
Paul desperately hoping that the land he was searching for was just at the top of his deck there, just to save a little bit of time.
Wow, Paul is... He's going to give a good run at winning this. I mean, he's ahead.
Way too much mana, I think.
Oh, he's going Tassiger? He's going Tassiger.
1 minute left on the round.
Left.
Yep. And you already played a land. Correct.
Hello, scatter, Tassiger.
Oh, wow, Paul left up Dispel and Negate. He's still got a Negate up.
The Dispel's in the graveyard.
I mean, I guess if you want to protect from both counter magic and the huge amounts of removal available to Esper Dragons, this makes a ton of sense.
Has used the Dispel now, so can't defend Ojutai with a Negate. And I don't think he's going to get 5 turns to attack with Tassiger.
So 5.
Wow, you negate this, right?
4.
And now it's going to get Soilimgar Scorn as a Force Spike is going to work.
Okay. That's
Time was called, so this is turn 0. Paul's going to get 3 attacks, 1, 3, and 5. Martin gets to resolve this Dig Through Time, but Paul's going to get to untap and slam Ojutai on a board that already has a Tassiger.
This is going to be super close.
I mean, I don't see Martin dealing 20 to Paul, but Paul's going to have 3 creatures in play to Martin's 5 land. And Paul's going to have 3 attack phases.
We heard earlier on about Paulo Vitor Damarosa taking his aggro deck and being the combo deck. Right now, Paul Reitzel needs to take his control deck and be the beatdown.
I tried to survive, or for...
Oh, Martin admits that he's trying to decide whether he's playing to win or playing to survive.
Playing to win seems like a
Yeah, it's
tall
not
order
happening.
for him.
Yeah, you just take... I mean, at this point, Martin wants the draw. I mean, draw does not eliminate him from top 8 contention, but loss does.
Yeah, barring some
Tiebreaker
very
miracle.
fortunate
Yeah.
tiebreakers, that seems to be the case, yeah.
Go. This is turn 1. Yep.
Does
So-
Jace get an attack in here? What do you think?
The cheeky attack for 0.
Send a message.
You'll see the pace of play slow down just a little bit here. Now that time has been called and they know how many turns are left on, the judges will start, giving people a hard time if they're taking a huge amount of time over their decisions. But basically, we're going to go back to a more normal pace of play here.
Indeed.
Something that I'm sure that both the viewers and our guys keeping track of cards in hand will appreciate.
Martin's hand is not particularly good for this spot. It's just the Silumgar.
I mean, Silumgar definitely has some blocking capabilities. Shambling Vent also available for Paul Reitzel if he wants to get really aggressive.
Man, how insane would the Bladed Fen be? Why did these guys only play 1 Bladed Fen?
I guess not
All
every
he ever
matchup is
wants
this
to
one,
draw.
right?
Yeah, of course.
All the rest of you. Even, dig, or complete disregard. I will take your dig through time.
Turn 3.
Jace.
Paul's got this and 1 more turn to try to deal 14 points of damage.
Jace now flips. Using the turn counter die. I'm afraid that that's not going to work for you, Paul. We are still on turn 3.
Should do this.
It'd be really good if Jace could just bend time like that.
He has many abilities. He's done many things over the course of his tenure as one of the most powerful planeswalkers in the multiverse. Pulling a trick on not just opponents, but viewers at home and judge stuff alike.
So I need to do the maximum amount of damage in the least amount of time.
I could have taken like a Jace just to block, but I didn't feel that would be.
I understand. Both of us trying to win is way better than both of us trying to draw from an incentive standpoint.
It's pretty good for us in the commentary booth too.
Sure.
Flashback to the rest. Yeah. Yep. I will attack you with both. Take 4 down to 10.
Dragon fight happening immediately there.
Your turn.
He
And-
found the Blighted Fen. Dig through time for Blighted Fen. Is he 1 point short?
He has a Shambling Vent, but I don't believe he has enough
But he
mana.
can't activate the Blighted Fen and the Shambling Vent, right? How
The
much
reason
is...
why I couldn't say anything is I had this card in my hand, so I didn't want to give you information when you were saying that, you know? When you were saying,
yeah,
should I go for the win or not, you know? Because it gets a little awkward there.
I think Paul's going to be 1 turn short.
Especially with the Fen on the other side.
Oh,
of
he had the
things too.
Gideon for the emblem.
Oof. That was a great dig through time. In principle.
That was a great duress off the top from Martin.
Can draw ultimate crit? No, that. Because 5 and tap, 3, with 2 more left. Can 12. There's no way for you to do 12. You draw Gideon, I'll block this, and you do 5 and 3.
Yeah, I don't think Gideon mattered. I mean, Gideon was not enough for Paul to win next turn. Paul needs like 1 more turn, I think.
Somewhere in the middle of this match, there was a decision that someone took a long time over, that if they'd taken slightly less time over, we may have had a match winner.
Now, instead, we have both of these guys still in contention for top 8, just with their back against the wall.
It's an exciting place to be for us. I'm sure that for them, it's possibly a little bit more irksome.
Honestly, Martin's okay with this. He's got the... He knows that he played at a good clip. He didn't take, like, 0-2 Jace just to chump block with and buy a turn. He played it straight up, and you know what? They just didn't finish.
Dig?
What's that?
Dig?
No. I'll play defend you.
Game of 3.
Attack. Trigger.
Yeah.
Going through the motions here.
So close.
These are always the kind of games that I
Yeah.
find myself playing back in my head afterwards to try and figure out if there's any extra way of squeezing out damage.
Always trying to just survive or something.
Alrighty.
1-1-1.
Yep.
Well, it's a draw.
It is a draw. Each of these players now just having to win out for the rest of the day if they want to be in a chance of making a top 8. Another top 8 for either of them would, of course, be a fantastic result. But what a round of Magic. We only really saw Control, but if you're looking for great people to watch playing Control, you couldn't really ask for better than we've seen in this feature match area here in round 12. Blighted Fen.
It looked pretty good.
I'm very, very excited with that one, but we have plenty more news for you what's been going on for the rest of the room here at round 12 of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. We're going to head back to the news desk now, but stay with us for plenty more Magic.
All right, thanks very much to Tim and Randy. I'm not going to give you any results right now because we have 2 gentlemen waiting patiently in the deck tech area, and we have wanted to get them here all weekend. As soon as we saw their deck, we thought, this is box office. It's been a ton of fun on camera and out in the room. Let's get to it. It's time to meet Christian Calcano and Oliver Tomaico.